And we're live. Welcome to yet another PCS Q&A, Coronavirus Edition. I am your host, MJ Boyce. I am the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. With us, as always, we have the lovely Megan Harless, our resident PCS Reform Advocate and resident BA, censored for little ears in your room, because we love you. All right, we do have a special guest today from TRANSCOM. She's going to be tuning in as we are in progress. She'll be here shortly. So we're just going to roll right into our housekeeping items because that's how we do. We need some sort of constant in this military life, right? Okay, first and foremost, we bring these subject matter experts to you for your questions. We bring subject matter experts anywhere from TRANSCOM to education experts to packers and movers. And we do this because we want to provide you answers. Because guess what? Between myself and Megan and our guests, we have the answers. And if we don't have the answers, we know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, guess what? We're going to take that question, your questions for answers, and we're going to get back to you at a later time. Now, speaking of which, in order for us to take your questions for action, we need you to leave those questions in the comment box below. We're going to go ahead and field those questions throughout the webinar, but most likely we got the questions that you're going to ask. Either way, throw those in the comment section. Why? Because for every comment, suggestion, concern that you might have that you want to notify us about, you're entered to win some awesome #Hope Design Limited bling. And it says this too shall PCS because hey, this too shall always PCS. Now, with that being said, no LOL smiley faces. Okay, those don't count. Questions, suggestions, concerns, you name it, put those in the comments below. For all those who are watching the replay, we'll get to your questions. Speaking of which, sometimes your questions may be geared towards your specific situation, and we may not have the answer on hand. It might be an answer that we can't answer because of your specific situation. For those types of situations, there are two resources that you must remember. Your two resources will forever and always be your local chain of command and your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who can further your specific issue for action so we can get it taken care of. Last but not least, I said it every week. I'm going to say it until it's gone. We need to flatten the curve, people. We need to flatten the curve. Because when we flatten the curve, we flatten Murphy with it. We have to do our part to flatten the curve because Murphy needs a reality check, and so does COVID. So Murphy with COVID, we're coming for you. We're coming for you. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and toss it over to our lovely Megan Harless for those DoD updates. Megan?
Hey, everybody. So just a couple things for you today. So within the last week or so, excited news that the Army has created an app called Digital Garrison where you can download it on iPhone and Android, and it kind of connects you to your installation. If you're getting ready to PCS, you can put in your gaming installation on there, and it kind of connects you to whatever's going on in the community and what's happening at that post. So it kind of helps you get set up in that new community before you even arrive there. So again, it's for the Army. It's called Digital Garrison. The Army also has their Army PCS Move app. So anything that's related to PCSing, you can go to that app and be able to find resources and information on that as well. And if you happen to be Navy, the Navy has an app also called My Navy Family, where it has lots of good information on there about PCSing, housing, a lot of different things in general. So if, go check out what your service specific branches, what apps they have available to help you, and check those out. They are really great tools to use, easy to use on your phone. Everybody has them, quick use, quick reference when you need them. So again, for the Army, Digital Garrison, and the Army PCS Move app. For the Navy, you have the My Navy Family. The Marine Corps has also issued a new MAR-Admin 289-19, which just changes how your alcohol shipments happen. So I guess before at the Marine Corps, you used to not be able to ship your alcohol with your household goods shipment as other services allow. You always either had to do that as a part of a PPM or take it with you or get rid of it. But now the MAR admin makes it eligible so alcoholic beverages can be shipped as part of your household goods shipment. We'll drop that link in the comments below so you guys can go back and reference it if it applies to you. And then also something really great, a great tool that we have now is the inconvenience claim fact sheet. You can find this on move.mil. It's located at the top. We'll drop the link in the picture below. We get a lot of questions in the groups about inconvenience claims, what constitutes an inconvenience claim, how is it covered, lots of various different things. So TRANSCOM, we've worked with them. We've been able to create this fact sheet. Lays it out all very nicely, very easy to read, very easy to understand. So that way you can go in there and figure out, exactly, are you entitled to an inconvenience claim and how should that be paid out? So again, we'll drop that in the links below as well. That's all I got for now. So back to you, MJ.
Awesome. Thanks for those DoD updates. And by the way, can I just say that as Marine spouse, with that new order, I think that it's awesome on the moving end, but I can't tell you the only consolation prize of my friends leaving me was them giving me all their booze when they moved. So, I mean, legit, so I know that there's going to be a lot of sad neighbor friends, but maybe you could partake before the movers get there. I'm just saying. Take it to the porch. Always take it to the porch.
Right.
All right. We have very awesome, very detailed topic for you today, and that has to do with shipping your privately owned vehicle, otherwise known as POV, because we love acronyms here, right? So we're going to be going ahead and talking to Lieutenant Colonel Lowry, who is with TRANSCOM. She's going to give a brief overview of kind of who she is, but if you really want to know more about her, I sincerely suggest you check out our previous webinar with her. That was last month, and we're going to drop that link in the comments for you because you need to know this girl. This woman knows her stuff like nobody's business. So we're going to go ahead and here she is. Okay, Lieutenant Colonel Lowry, will you go ahead and give us a brief down and dirty really quick about yourself?
All right. Well, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm so excited to be here again. Raina Lowry, here with US TRANSCOM, the Defense Personal Property Strategic Engagements team. So I've been with US TRANSCOM for 2 years now, but I'm a hardcore logistician of 20 years, have been moving my whole career, as I kind of shared earlier. So at least 12 moves under our belt, OCONUS and CONUS. And so there's a lot of things to moving. And today we're going to talk about a topic of moving vehicles. So again, one of those additional things that we do move. We don't talk about it all that much. So I'm excited to share with you and your families and the customers kind of a little bit more about getting ready to move this particular very important item for most families that are going to be moving this summer.
Oh, yes. Arguably one of the biggest purchases in our lives. And sometimes the only way to sanity. If I didn't have a car, to just drive down the road, because everybody here is just like, yeah. So, okay. Going to launch right into those questions. All right. So everyone always asks, if they can ship a vehicle. So we want to know what the requirements for shipping a car or, their vehicle. And is it just OCONUS, or is there any situation that would authorize, shipping a POV, when you're moving within the states, OCONUS?
Great. No, great starting point. So again, just like with our household goods shipments, the first part of all of this is getting a current set of orders. And so that's kind of where we start from, making sure that we have the understanding of the entitlement to move, because depending on your location and tour length, we'll decide, if you have the authority and entitlement to move a vehicle. Generally, when we're talking about shipping vehicles overseas or overseas back or in between. But there are going to be times where service members may be authorized or even DoD civilians to ship vehicles within the lower 48 states. And some of those reasons would be if there is a medical condition or something that's preventing them from driving the vehicle to the next location. Sometimes our civilian employees, if they're first-time government employees, they might have an entitlement to move a vehicle. Or if we have some of our new folks that are coming into the service and they're trainees, and it's in the best interest of the government to give that entitlement so that way they have their vehicle at their training location as well. So again, there are a few exceptions to moving inside the continental United States, but a majority of what we talk about is going to be like the OCONUS, the big, how do I get my stuff across the globe and back again?
Oh, absolutely. All right. Megan, this one's for you.
So now that we know who can ship their POV, what is the process for someone to ship their POV?
All right, Megan. So there's a couple of pieces to this. So I'm going to hopefully step us through this in a way that is kind of digestible. So the first step, again, we talked about was orders. You got to have the authorization to have that entitlement. And that'll kind of, again, discuss the location, the timelines, and kind of get that ball rolling. The second piece after you have your orders is to go ahead and contact your personal property office. Again, getting that counseling. And we've talked about it. And I know you guys have talked about counseling is a really big part of this. Get that scheduled right away so we can find out all the bits and pieces. So again, for the counseling session, they definitely will need your orders. They'll want to have proof of ownership of your vehicle, like the title, also making sure you have your registration up to date. Some of those things are really kind of important for that counseling session. And then once we've gotten through the government side of counseling, which is good, now you kind of know the left and right limits to go ahead. And then on the third piece of reaching out to the Vehicle Processing Center, the VPCs as we call them. That's the location that we have them several locations around the globe that you'll be going to either drop off your vehicle or pick those vehicles up. And so you'd want to schedule an appointment with them. And so for that piece, I just wanted to touch on that due to COVID right now, all the VPCs are appointment only. And so for folks, that's important to know. It's easy to do, but it's important to know that you'd want to go ahead and go to the website and schedule that appointment and date and time and drop off. So again, very, very important. I see you guys highlighting it right now to go to the PCS My POV to schedule that appointment will be critical. And then, of course, 24 hours before that appointment, they'll confirm that everything's still okay, no one's ill, and kind of walk through the process. Because, again, things change in real time right now. All right, so we've got our orders, the counseling, and now the VPC now has a scheduled time. So the fourth piece of this is kind of a big one, which is documentation. Making sure that as you're getting ready, prior to us dropping off our vehicle, that all the documentation is there. We've talked about the easy ones, which are like orders, but making sure you have a government or military ID. They'll need a copy of that front and back. Proof of ownership, and again, the ownership needs to be in the service member's name. For those of us that aren't going to be, there as a service member, if you have somebody designated to ship your vehicle for you, they need a power of attorney. And so having a certified copy of that will be important. They'll need that documentation, as well as if you have a leased or a lien vehicle, you might also need a lease or lien letter that will go along with it. So there's several things that are put in the realm of documentation. And again, knowing all of those will be very important that they outline in step 2, which is in your counseling session. But sometimes it takes a few days, sometimes a few weeks to get some of those things, or if they've been packed away, to dig them back out. I know for us, just trying to find all of those certificates and insurances and all those policy letters, just giving yourself some time to have all of that and to have that readily available for when you're getting ready to drop off your vehicle. Nothing is more frustrating to actually get to the location and then go, oh, you're missing a form. I'm sure we've all been there, but it doesn't mean that it makes it easier to swallow that pill.
Okay, I just have a quick word. Okay, just quick question, because you probably don't get this a lot. The norm is that, yes, the service member, if you're a couple, you kind of share stuff. Okay, so a lot of us PCS on our own. And a lot of us got to do this on our own, which of course is anyway. So let's say that I'm a newly married spouse and I haven't added him to my account or my car. I own my car. It's our only vehicle because we be poor. And we're moving across country. If it's just in my name, do I need to get it also put in his name in order to ship it? Or is there a different process that we can go through?
That's a really interesting question. And I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that. I definitely think, because at one point I was newly married and I actually had an old passport with my maiden name versus my new name. And so there was some disparity on the paperwork when we were moving. And so we kind of fought through that, like, well, I am married. Here's my marriage certificate, but the passport, it didn't all match up. So again, I would just really encourage folks to talk to their counselors and the transportation offices to make sure that all is sped out. Because again, we don't want those newly married, couples to be moving and the first thing they're, coming up against is stress because they didn't know. And so again, I would just kind of champion that those folks that are coming in, or they have things that have changed, sometimes we're adding to our family, sometimes we're taking away, that all that documentation is taken care of in the process. All right, so I'm not done yet. So we still are
Oh,
talking. So
go.
now,
Keep going. Keep going.
so again, we're foot stomping, documentation, making sure everything, all the names, dotted I's. Okay, so the next piece of this will now be, let's look at our vehicles. You know, our wonderful vehicles that we love to keep clean and that are in the tip-top condition. Well, if you're like me, some of them might have recalls that we're still getting to, making sure that everything will pass inspection. So your vehicle, take the time to make sure that your vehicle has any recalls fixed, any other minor maintenance things done, because it needs to be in full operating condition. You don't want something to go wrong with the brakes or some, things to go haywire while it's on the ship and it's being moved across the country. So again, has to be in safe operating condition. It has to be clean, and it doesn't have to be spot clean, but it definitely does not need to have any dirt, debris, anything on the undercarriage, within the wheel wells.
So no
Cheerios.
petrified French fries. No petrified French fries in the cracks like my car. Okay.
Yes, those smells that were there before will only amplify as you are spending weeks and weeks in a containerized hot shipment. When you get your vehicle back, you'll be like, there is no deodorant thing that will make that better. So please, that's the extra, I hear my husband telling me in the background, please make sure that you clean out your vehicles with a dry vacuum and just kind of wipe down anything, because again, it's going to go into a shipping storage kind of area, and you want to make sure that it's clean. Another big thing, and we don't always think about this, but the vehicle gas tank. So most of us are driving around and you're probably tracking, and when we have rental cars, when you return it, it has to be at least, at a certain measure marker. And so for shipment, vehicles need to be at 1/4 of a tank of gas. And so again, that might mean you loop around the VPC a couple more times to get that meter down, but don't show up with a full tank of gas, because in my mind, I would be like, I'll show up with a full tank. So that way, when I get to my next location, I just drive off and continue, 400 miles. That's not the case here. We definitely want to make sure we're on that threshold of 1/4 of a tank, because that's what it's authorized to ship a vehicle. You also need a separate set of keys. I know that in our family, we have 2 sets, and if we were shipping something, I probably need to get a 3rd set made. And that includes keys for like the doors, if you've got a gas cap, anything. They need a separate set of keys that will then go with your vehicle. Hopefully you also carry one of them in your backpack, your purse, or whatever. But just in case those get lost, it is a separate set of keys will be shipped with your vehicle. So that way, when you get there, you can pick it up. Car alarms. So I don't know about this, but I know they ask that if you have car alarms, that those will be disabled while it's in shipping status. And so knowing through the maintenance manual how to do that, or going to your dealership to kind of make sure that you know how to turn off or disable the alarm will be important. And then as we go through all of this, as you're finally moving toward it, again, just know overall, like if there's any scratches, bumps, if there's anything with your vehicle, just kind of be aware of that, because you'll do a joint inspection when you're at the VPC walking around your vehicle, and just annotating any of that stuff. So again, just overall peace of mind of the condition of the vehicle. Try to make it as clean and ship ready as you can make it. I know that's a lot. So I think that's it. That's about 5 different steps. But
No,
again,
it's
just kind
totally-
of walking us through the whole process of getting ready for moving and shipping your vehicle.
Because it is a process. I mean, like it legitimately is, with the timing and all of that. There are 2 things that I learned today that I did not know, audience, just to let you know. I had no idea you needed more than 1 set of keys. And if I had to PCS right now, I would be so screwed. And then the other thing was the gas. In fact, I think my husband shout out, Boo. I think my husband may have had a minor issue with that at some point. It's been so long since we PCS Oconus, but yeah. So, okay. So just for the record, audience, any questions that you have, comments, concerns, maybe a shout out to Lieutenant Colonel Lowry here for her. Look, y'all, she is a busy woman and she's got to get off here by 1400 Eastern because she's awesome and she's just well liked. Everybody wants a piece of her. So we're going to roll into the next question. But if you have any, drop them in below and you'll have a chance to win some bling. I'm just saying it's not that difficult. All right. Next question. You ready? If I'm CONUS and my family chooses to ship our car at our expense, can we be reimbursed for the mileage rate that we would have received if we drove our car?
Oh, That is a really good question. And so, again, this is where I'll go back to knowing the entitlement and talking to your personal property office, because it kind of depends. In some cases, I believe the answer is yes, because you would be being paid to drive that mileage regardless. And so there is an entitlement for that. But if you decide to get like a white glove transportation service, that might be more expensive. And so you might have to, pay out of pocket there. So again, going back and knowing what your entitlement is really going to be important of what you will get back. Because again, I think it's important for families to have that peace of mind ahead of time so they can really make smart decisions and not get, at the end and go, I'm not getting compensated, and kind of have that frustration point.
Yeah, so we know a lot of families are 2-car families. Some of them are even 3-car families. We've got teenagers driving now, or they have their sport, their fun vehicles. So if a family has 2 cars or more than 1 car, can they choose to have a car stored? And if so, what is the process for having that POV stored when they're moving?
All right. So in most cases, the entitlement for vehicles really comes down to 1 per family, whether that's being shipped or if that's being stored. There are some exceptions to that. And so I definitely, again, would encourage folks to go back to the counselors and to talk through their situations. And in most cases, if you have that second or third car, that storage will be at the family's expense. Or if you're like me, you find a brother or someone to be like, hey, can you watch my car? Can you drive around the block at least, once a month, just to make sure it's still in good operating condition? So again, it really will come down to that 1 vehicle will probably be the entitlement, and then trying to decide in the family whose car gets to go and whose car gets to stay.
So with that, if a family happens to have, say they're not shipping a vehicle, if they have a boat or an RV, could they store that with the military, or is that an at your own expense sort of thing too?
All right. So that's a really interesting question, especially right now where, we're in the summertime, and definitely, there are folks that are buying boats. There's lots of folks within the services that have, RVs, recreational vehicles. So we'll tackle the boat thing first. So, because of boats, I was looking this up. I thought it was very interesting. They fall under our household good property side of the house. And so they're not really covered under POV because they're not wheeled vehicles. But I was looking to see okay, so what all are boats? Anything that's 14th in length. And this was like canoes, this is paddle boats, this is jet skis. I mean, there is quite a plethora of boat-like items that can be stored or shipped. So again, going back to your counseling session, make sure you identify that in that session, because that's kind of an unusual thing to ship, to make sure that that's covered, and that would be moving or being stored under your household good shipment. All right, the second piece was with RVs. And so RVs do count as POVs. Some of them are quite large, and sometimes there's additional costs with that. So again, looking to make sure that those items are identified during your counseling session to say, hey, and I know a lot of folks have motorcycles too that kind of are under that umbrella of shipping vehicles, just kind of encompassing that, because again, at the end of the day, some of these items may be at customer expense, and we want to make sure we highlight that very clearly up in front if they're going to be covered or not.
Okay, I'm just going to follow up with that, just with a quick follow-up question on that. So you said an RV is technically considered a POV, correct?
It can be. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if I was like, okay, I'm going to ditch my car and I'm going to ship my RV, Oconus, can I do that?
I'm going to come back with the lawyer answer of it depends. I mean, we're in a whole new world. Some folks, depending on where you might be going, that if the country allows it, why not? And if that's, I know we're kind of in a new realm of tiny house nation too, and people are trying to be smaller and more compact. So again, going back to your counseling and your shipping offices to talk through what are you authorized. I mean, if that's your home to be, you might be without your home for a couple of months while you're waiting for that, vehicle/home to arrive at that port agent. But again, just making sure that all of that is identified early, and then to, again, find out if there's any fees associated with that.
Got you. And I'm sensing a theme here. I don't know if anybody else is, counseling. Oh, by the way, counseling. Ask those questions, write them down, hand them over. And so one of the funny reasons why I asked about the whole RV, if we could ship our RV, because it kind of goes in line with my next question. So there are a lot of questions about if you can pack your car up with items. And I was thinking, well, shoot, if I have an RV, I can pack a lot of stuff. Still make weight, you know. So my question is, can you share what some of the items that are allowed are, and what you cannot ship in your POV?
Sure. Very valid. I'm following that logic trail. I would want to do the same thing. So, most of our basic items that you can ship with your vehicle will probably be, no surprise to the audience of, you want your tire irons, you want to see if there's like a safety kit, you want to make sure if there's extra spare tires in the vehicles, like all of those things that kind of encompass overall vehicle safety. Those are perfectly fine to keep in the vehicle. For all of our families that have like young children, like for us, like we definitely like car seat would be important to make sure you ship with your vehicle, that it's all buckled in and strapped up. If you have a stroller or if you have any pack and plays, and those kind of things are also fully acceptable. If you've got some jackets or so forth, again, if we're going to the northern tier or whatnot, and you're in a hot location, you probably want to pack a few of those coats and stuff in your vehicle, and those are perfectly fine to ship. You can't pack it to the gills where it's, you can't see through the windows or whatnot, but you will be able to take some of those items with you. And the folks at the VPCs should be able to talk to you about, kind of those items. Things that you can't ship in the vehicle, and this is, again, just mostly if everything that is in the vehicle is company made and it's already like installed. But if you have CDs or DVD players or, I don't know, like a little mini television or something mounted in your vehicle, those items will have to be taken out. That will not be safe to transport.
To be clear, not the ones that like come stock and fold down and then fold back up, right?
That's correct. Those can stay. But
Okay.
if you're like me, I have the ones that's kind of like Velcroed onto the back seat of my my chair where my 2-year-old can sit there and watch videos and stuff, and I can hit the button. So those things would have to be taken out. If there's any flammables, one of the other things that I thought was interesting that if you have extra car parts or things that you maybe just kind of carry around in your vehicle for in case a rainy day or something breaks down, you'll want to go ahead and remove those items. Those cannot go with your vehicle for shipping.
Okay.
So we've talked a lot about the process of shipping and storing our POVs. If you had to boil it down, what would be the most important things a family should know about shipping and storing their POV?
All right, so we've touched on it, and I think it's just really good to foot stomp. Preparing for a shipping of a POV is very much like preparing for your household goods. Definitely getting the mindset of planning, knowing what the entitlements are, and then the timelines associated so you can kind of backwards plan so it's a successful move. POV shipments don't just happen, on a whim. There's definitely some foresight, making sure you have all that documentation correct. And I did want to touch on that we have the most amazing contract partner with the International Auto Logistics, or IAL. So when you populated the website there, the PCS My POV, that's their website, and they are great partners with us, and they have wonderful resources, lots of videos on there and tutorials that kind of talk through each step of the process and educating folks on what to expect. Given COVID, they have also added a lot of safety measures to what folks can expect when they go into the VPCs to drop off their vehicles, to pick up their vehicles. And as you guys are probably well aware, keeping those drop off and pickups small, making sure that we wear the face coverings, that any commonly touched surfaces will all be wiped down. That should be no shock to anyone, but we're going to continue to do that as long as we're in the pandemic. And so again, going to that website would be very important for folks that are going to be picking up or dropping off vehicles.
Good call. Okay, we did have a question come in real quick because I know you've got to go. And just for the record to everybody, any questions that you have after Lieutenant Colonel Lauer leaves us, she has been so gracious as to take those. We're able to forward those over to her, and she's going to help us out with the answers so you're not left hanging. So just know, if you don't catch her now, we'll get you some answers. Okay, so Megan Green. Hi, Megan. Thanks for joining us. She has a question. Yes, great name. What scenarios would allow 2 vehicles to be shipped for one household?
Again, that is a great question. And I don't have a definitive answer to share with the audience right now. I will definitely go back and ask some of our, in my mind, I'm thinking if there was any kind of medical vehicle or something to that effect that would be necessary for an EF&P family. Like that's one that would jump out that I think might be an exception to policy, that they might authorize a second vehicle in transport. But again, it's a good question. And so I'll go back and find out. But again, for the most part, majority of all of us will only be authorized to ship one vehicle or store one vehicle.
I do want to jump in and say that during our stop move order, when everything was kind of locked down earlier this year and the Canadian border was closed, I did see a couple of families that were authorized the 2 vehicles to ship from Alaska back down to the lower 48 because they couldn't drive through Canada with the border being closed. So I would assume those extreme circumstances again like that would maybe allow it again.
Yeah,
so in other words, it's worth it to do your due diligence and research and at least ask the question, right? And it all goes back to what Lieutenant Colonel Larry said is counseling, because your counselors are going to know at the transportation office what is dealing with your specific situation. And Megan, that was a great question. Any answers to questions will absolutely be going up. Our awesome content editor, Lizanne Lightfoot, is transcribing this as we speak. And it will be included in that. We update that as we receive answers in. So thank you so much, Megan. Okay, so we know that you only have 10 minutes, and I just want to let the audience know, please know that anybody else who leaves a question, I mean, you're getting the answer right here and right now. Lieutenant Colonel Lowry, will you help us out with any questions we get after this?
Sure, absolutely.
See, isn't she awesome? Okay, we're going to go ahead and let you go get ready for that awesome meeting that you probably have because you're an awesome person, and we will be back with you another day, I'm sure.
Well, again, I just wanted to say thank you guys for having me today and letting us talk to the greater audience about, POV shipments and storage. We do realize that this is a very, again, emotional thing for most families because we love our vehicles and we need them as soon as possible whenever we get to our final destinations. And so any disruptions or delays, there's definitely, friction points and it raises the stress level. So, and for me, just a lot of planning in the forefront makes that, transition a lot easier, and hopefully we get families connected to their vehicles very quickly and back on their way. So again, but this is a great network of folks that are here between IAL staff, US TRANSCOM, our GIPSOs, PIPSOs, our shipping offices, and all of you guys out here that are helping, broadcast to the greater audiences about how to educate and where those resources again. So again, I'll footstop move.mil and I'll footstomp the PCS My POV as great resources and references. So again, thank you guys for having me today. And again, for everyone that's moving right now, safe travels, and we are here to help and here to support.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Gosh, I just love her. Like, she's just so personable. And what's even better is that she's on both ends of the spectrum too. Like, or you know what I mean? Like she gets it because she's married. And
yeah,
I don't know about you, Megan, but you can definitely guarantee that anything that has to do with anything that impacts my life through military, I'm like that is our pillow talk.
Yes.
I'm like, I lay down my head on the pillow. I turn over to my husband and I say, okay, let's talk to me about weight allowance. What is this stuff? I'm only allowed to have how much what? Yeah. But it's awesome because that's a live-in perspective right there. That is live-in perspective. Like you do realize you live this life too, right? And so they apply that as well and listen to all of us. And I think that's awesome. And again, Megan, you and advocates like you are exactly why things are changing, why she was able to be on here today with us, why literally that's all you have to do is ask the question. And, it doesn't hurt to ask no matter what. If you don't ask, what's the answer? No. The answer is no. What was that? Henry Ford, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will get some more questions and we will forward them on to Lieutenant Colonel Lowry. Yes, today's webinar was a little bit shorter, and that's going to happen because what I love is that, okay, she's taking meetings, and the reason she's taking meetings is because TRANSCOM is busy at work, trying to make sure that everything is going to go smoothly. I believe Megan and I were talking the other day, and Megan, you said that peak season was sort of extended this year.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you think about what this year has looked like, our normal peak season runs mid-May to about mid-August. We see the bulk of it happen through June and July. But when you think about it, when we had April, most of May, where people weren't moving. We were in that stop movement order, and people really were not moving unless they were mission essential or had some sort of medical or financial hardship. So, because of that, all those folks that normally would have moved in late March, April, beginning half of May didn't move. And so all those folks had to get shifted in somewhere. And because of, still safety concerns with COVID and, just logistic supply chain and everything, the peak season got shifted a little bit, and then it's getting kind of spread out a little bit to be able to meet the needs of everybody, to be able to allow them to still PCS this year. And so because of that, where we see our normal peak season end in kind of mid-August, it's kind of getting stretched out and going through October as well, just to be able to, get that backlog caught up, to get all those people that had amended orders and shifted orders, caught up and put in there to be able to PCS at some point. So it's a very different peak season this year. Still no telling exactly what peak season next year is going to look like, but it's definitely not what we have experienced in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would definitely concur. There's a lot of different variables that nobody ever thought we would have. For instance, I never would have thought you would be allowed to ship 2 vehicles because Canada's border was closed and you can't drive through it. I never would have thought that.
So when I first heard that, I was just like, something's wrong. Like you can only ship 1 vehicle. And then, going through it and looking at it, it's just like, it made total, they can't drive through Canada. A lot of folks, they'll ship 1 vehicle because it's considered an Oconus location. And then they'll drive the other one, make it a fun vacation, go sightsee through Canada. But the Canadian border was closed, so they weren't able to do that. And now the Canadian border is open. They do have a lot of strict regulations. Your car gets tagged at the border, and you're only allowed to be in Canada for so many days before you have to exit, or you have to pay penalties or other things. So it's still a very different time period that we're living in. But at least the border is open now to some degree. But just hearing those families and hearing their situations, like it made total sense. The border's closed, you can't drive your car. What are you going to do? So
exactly. So here's what we're going to do, folks. We're going to take, just because I want to kind of include our Oconus peeps who watch after the fact, any questions, comments, or concerns that you have that you leave in the comment box. I want to include our Oconus people because I feel bad. We have a very large Oconus following, and they kind of get skimped on the deal when it comes to the drawings because it's like sleepy time right now over there most of the time, depending on where they're at. So we're going to give them a chance to weigh in and ask some questions, and we're going to enter those names into a drawing as well. We will do first thing after housekeeping items and after those DoD updates next week. What we'll do is we will go ahead and raffle off those names for all of those people, whether they are CONUS or Oconus, so that way that they can get in on the game too. Because you know what? Hope Design Limited is not just in the States. We can ship her stuff everywhere, but we want to include our Oconus peeps because this is relevant to them too. And sometimes being so far away kind of stinks. All right. And before we leave, I just want to again thank Megan and let you know that she secured an interview for next week with a professional organizer, which I think is awesome. And I could have probably used in my life several times over and maybe even now. So I'm really excited that she's coming on, and she's going to talk to us a little bit about how to organize and get ready for a PCS, how to organize on the back end, and maybe just how to organize in general. And yes, I will be asking questions for a friend as well while we're on that. So tune in next week. Oh, stand by. Okay. So
you just got in, Lizanne.
We just got in Lizanne. Lizanne had a question. And Lizanne, we may have to give this to Lieutenant Colonel Lowry, but maybe Megan can go. Okay, Megan. I have a question. We're doing a domestic move within stateside, and my husband's orders say he's allowed to ship a vehicle. When he tried to sign up for it, the command told him he can't ship it, and it was just there as an example. Where does he go to get a second opinion?
Oh, so interesting. So, I want to say that it may depend on exactly how it's written in the orders. Because sometimes the verbiage that they use states it. Other verbiage that they use gives an example. So I would say it really depends on how it is written in the orders. I would always say you could always go back to the person who cuts your spouse's orders and ask them to clarify, because sometimes they can be able to help clarify how things are written as to what it really means. Do
you think that it would be a good idea, in addition to your advice, to also maybe take a little snippet screenshot of said orders, forward it, so we can maybe forward it over to Lieutenant
Yeah.
Colonel?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. If you want to take a little screenshot of just that section, we can send it over to TRANSCOM and ask for their clarification on it as well. But yeah, definitely reach out to the person who cuts your spouse's orders to see if they can give some clarification on that, and then we can totally ask TRANSCOM on that as well.
That is happening. Thank you, Lizanne. All right, for real this time though, we're going to go ahead and get off, and we will see you next Wednesday. And until then, this too shall PCS. Bye, everybody.
Bye.